I don't have a real intro, but you can call me Xander or R, and today I am here to bring you a review of Dry Land by Pladek, I think is maybe how you say the author's last name, but I am not 100% sure. I mentioned this book in my Queerlit Readathon video. I was going to use it as outside and create your own category, if not more. The create your own category was Queer World War I, which is what the book is pitched as. At least it was pitched to me as Queer World War I, which I was very into, with a bit of like a magical twist, because our main character can grow plants, just like with his hands. Like he like thinks about it and he can grow plants. And I think I read more of the summary in that video. I'm gonna give a brief from my brain summary, because the back of the book is quite long, and I do think it gives away some elements. So if you do want to read this book, I don't want to spoil it too much for you. But yes, our main character, his name is, he goes by Rand. I believe he has a full, it's short for something. Don't remember what it is, quite frankly. It's basically Rand, the whole book. He can grow, he discovers very early on in the book that he can grow plants. Doesn't matter the plant, but he can grow plants. And he is very intrigued by this, because, like, his main character trait is that he loves, specifically, I think, Wisconsin forestry. He went on a campaign when he was, like, younger to, like, save a, like, little swamp near him, and then he joins the Forestry Service after college. He discovers this gift in, it is 1917. I believe the summer of 1917 is when the book starts. And then, you know, reveals it to his, like, person that is in charge of him in the Forestry Service. I don't know the title. And since this is the time that America is entering World War I, they think it'll be a great use to grow, to use his gift to grow trees for the war effort. And so him and his lover, Gabriel, are basically, like, sent to, France to do just that. And I am actually going to get into, I'm gonna have a, so that's the pitch. So I guess if you don't want to know anything more, and just want to know the pitch, and my, like, recommendation would be, if you do not have any familiarity with Wisconsin forests, or World War I don't think you're going to enjoy this book. So maybe don't. I don't really recommend it if you don't like either of those things. Because the book is very, like, info dumpy about the aforementioned Wisconsin forests. And if you, like, I don't know anything about Wisconsin forests, so it uses, like, these specific names of, like, trees and flowers and other things, presumably. It got to a point where I just accepted that I was not going to know what specific plant was being mentioned. I just was like, that's a plant. And went with it from there, because the amount of times that I would have had to stop reading and look up the word would have been insane. Not to mention that it also has some pacing issues. So if you get, you know, past that, which it was easy enough to do once I, like, read a bit and I realized that I was going to have to do that. It was easy enough to look past. I'm not gonna, like, fault the author for that, because the author is actually an academic, and this was published by a university press. So that's not, like, I'm not faulting the book for that, but I would be aware of that going into the book. And then the other thing, I can fault the book for a little bit, but this is more of, like, I could just kind of tell that this was this person's, like, debut fiction book. And yeah, the pacing was just off. A lot of, like, key moments felt rushed. And then, like, I don't know, one thing would be happening and then suddenly, like, we jump to, like, something that was happening, like, the next paragraph down, and, like, weeks have gone past. And there wasn't really a good transition between those two things. And so the pacing was just off. The characters are great. I thoroughly enjoyed the characters. So, like, maybe if you do actually are, like, you know, people always ask plotter characters, I would say this book is very, like, character heavy. And so if you do like that and can get past the plants and the pacing, maybe it's for you. It felt very tailored to my interests in a weird way. However, I will also say that there actually isn't that much World War I in it. Like, I was expecting, not necessarily, because they're growing trees, I was not necessarily expecting them to have a lot of, like, time in the trenches. Like, I wasn't expecting that. But I feel like even the glimpses of World War I that we do get are not that much. And there are some other things I'll mention. There's going to be a spoiler section a little bit later on. I'm just trying to do a non-spoilery section right now, that I also didn't like in regards to World War I. But yeah, if you like characters, I did love the characters. And, like, it's not a bad book. I do not regret reading it. But it's very hard to recommend to somebody who does not have either of those interests. Because there's, like I said, there's basically, like, no, like, introduction explanations for, like, really, like, any of the forest stuff. And then there's no really explanation for any of the World War I elements either. And so, like, if you don't really know much about it, a lot of, like, important scenes are going to be lost on you because it doesn't explain the importance, which, again, I did not mind in the slightest, but, you know, it is hard for me to say, yeah, you should read this book if you don't like either of those things and you don't have any knowledge of either of those things. So, moving away from that, I'm gonna talk more with more spoilers. I'm not gonna go super in depth, but I am gonna talk about some spoilers. As I mentioned, the book felt a little catered to my niche interests, not only because of the queer World War I-ness of it all, but as I mentioned, the main character's name is Rand, and some of the book has, like, letters in it, like, written letters that he's writing to people, and he signs it with R. And, you know, if you're not intimately familiar with, like, Les Mis, the book, you would not know that that is what the character of Grantaire does in Les Mis. Like, he signs his name with a capital R, because it's a pun, and that is why I also go by R. So it was funny to read the letter and, like, be like, wow, that's me. And you're like, but that's the first letter of his name. That's what I was prepared to believe until we get, like, probably 2/3 of the way through the book, and one of the side characters says she's a bit of a Grantaire. Once that was said, I knew exactly that the author knew exactly what they were doing, signing the letters with just the R. Like, you can't mention specifically Grantaire by name and do that, and, like, it's related. So that was very weirdly tailored to me that I was not expecting in the slightest. So if you've made it this far in the video, I'm just going to assume that you probably sort of know, you know, what I'm about, and you're not a complete stranger. But if you are a complete stranger, this might sound weird to you, and it honestly might sound weird to, you know, people who do know me, because I haven't been very public about this. This is on Tumblr.com, but I did write like a fanfic at one point, featuring, like, trench porn, for lack of a better word. It was not actually very pornographic at all. I feel like the smut readers were probably very dissatisfied with it in general. But yeah, so that is something I did, right? In the book, in this book, it's like kinda low-key the same thing, except it's not even as explicit as I went to in my fic. But there is sex in a trench. It's just a fake trench. And, like, the training grounds of, like, the base that they're on before they get shipped off to France. But it is one of the mock trenches that they're using. And it does, like, explicitly say, like, and very much, like, not even implies. Like, I do think it is, this book does not get explicit with the sex at all. But in, like, a very fade to blacky, but, like, it's happening sort of way, there is fake trench sex. So that was also weirdly targeted towards me, I feel like. It's just very, like, one thing would have been, you know, like, I'm still, like, it's wild that that happened, quite frankly, like, 2 different times. And yeah, like, also, I don't know, I felt like the way that the author just, like, writes things, like I mentioned, it feels very info-dumpy, and it also felt like how I would write some things if I was more obsessed with Wisconsin forestry. So it felt very tailored to me specifically, which is why I'm like, I enjoyed it. I do not regret reading it, but I don't know if I would recommend it to, like, a general audience. 'Cause, yeah, there's just, I don't know, it's a debut book that really likes Wisconsin. I cannot stress how much this book likes plants, and specifically plants from Wisconsin, but it doesn't discriminate against other plants. Other plants are also given the full name treatment in France, and I still didn't know what they were, but at that point I was like, that's a plant. context clues have told me that this is a plant. Probably a tree, because that's what he did a lot of in France. So, yeah, I feel like this is not a book that I can widely recommend, simply because the pacing is just very, like, not super great, and if you don't like those other things, like, there's not that to keep you engaged. There's the characters, and the characters are great. But I guess it would depend on you if you want to read it or not with that knowledge. So I did take some notes. Who am I? And I feel like I've definitely gone off script from the notes. So, let's see. Oh, I'll mention this. I wrote this down, and this is just another thing. This is not a weirdly tailored thing that I picked up on, but it is something that I picked up on because I just have so much knowledge about World War I and the surrounding things. And it's only, I think, mentioned twice, very offhandedly. But a fertilizer is, like, mentioned twice, and it's never mentioned by name who this fertilizer is by. It's like, oh yeah, the Germans have some great fertilizer, and, like, that's the extent, right? And I think a German scientist working on fertilizer might have been mentioned earlier in the book. It's mentioned, like, 2 separate times, I think. However, I know that they are referring to, Fritz Haber from the Haber-Bosch method. He won a Nobel Prize in chemistry for this fertilizer because it's actually, like, how, like, we, as, like, a global population, we're able to sustain a growing global population, because it, like, replenished the soil enough to support growing food for a huge global population. So that's the fertilizer, and the fun thing also that you will not know at all unless you know that that is that specific person and you know just about his life is that he also is the creator of chlorine gas. Yeah, he is considered the father of chemical warfare. So there's that. There's a Sabaton song called Father, and it's, like, about the dichotomy of him creating such a horrible thing like chlorine gas and chemical warfare while also creating such a great thing that, like, really paved the way for modern society in general. Anyway, that's offhandedly mentioned twice, and I was like, hey, I know who you're talking about. Whereas, like, I do not think the average person would. But also, I don't know if the average person would even be reading this book. But anyway, also, if you don't have a lot of context and know about World War I, there's, like, honestly, a very important scene, in the plot of the book. So there's, like, a very pivotal moment where Rand is trying to figure out why all of his plants keep dying. And he has this, like, realization that maybe it's because, he needs to go to, like, dead land, and maybe that'll help the plant, like, not die. He makes this, like, realization. He comes to this conclusion while he's in France. And so he goes to Verdun. I think it's stated that he goes to Verdun, and it's stated that he wants to do this testing in a land that's, like, dead. But everything else is, like, not really mentioned. So unless you, like, I guess that is enough, maybe, if you don't know the intricate details about the Battle of Verdun, but I do, so I can tell you that that was a good, like, pick of land, because the Battle of Verdun was the longest battle in World War I. It was 303 days, and they shelled the absolute shit out of that ground. So it was very much dead. And, like, I don't know, I feel like a very, honestly, like, kind of pivotal thing happens in Verdun, and you just, it doesn't really feel important in the book unless you, like, know that about Verdun, because it's not really explained. Not that the book necessarily needs to explain all of that to you, right? But I don't know, it just didn't feel as important as it should have. And that's, like, a common thing in the book, is, like, important, and that's kind of why I say the pacing is a little off, because, like, also, this is more of just the pacing issue rather than anything else, but there's a scene later that's also very important to the plot that, like, we're told happens, and then, like, the next paragraph, it's already happened and we're dealing with something else. You don't really spend any time on that moment. And I was just like, what? I was looking forward to reading that. But, anyway, the love interest, Gabriel, I have not mentioned him enough. He is very good. His character is very good. As I mentioned, all of the characters in this book are fantastic. And it does do, like, the queerness, and then also, what I didn't realize was gonna be in there is racism, too! So, not only, do we get a lot of comments about how, Rand is actually from, like, a German immigrant family, and his, like, parents still speak German, so, like, he also speaks German. And I think he's just, like, going about his day, like, maybe singing something in German, like, under his breath, honestly. And somebody, like, makes a comment about it. And also his last name, I think, is Brandt, which I guess is very German. And so people make remarks about, like, if he's actually a spy. Because, you know, he has a German last name and German immigrant parents, so clearly he must be a spy. And then, that's not, like, I don't know if that's considered racism, that's more like xenophobia. But there is, like, actual racism, in the sense that, like, Gabriel, his love interest, is Mexican. And is from, I think, Arizona? Maybe Nevada. One of those two. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly. And I did not write that down. Sorry about the loud AC if you can hear it. But yeah, it definitely, like, comments on, like, that. Specifically, one of the, like, villains, really he is a villain, he's not an antagonist, I hate him. Like, it's basically the person that Rand is assigned to work with to hone his gift during the war. He's like a scientist, no, he's like more of like a medical officer, I think. He, like, sees Rand and Gabriel not even, like, doing anything super romantic, but they're, like, cuddling. Oh, that's another thing. They go to France on the Carpathia, which is the ship that picked up the survivors of the Titanic, which I don't know if that's true or not, and is another wildly niche interest that I have that just was very strange to be like, okay, we have the Titanic hyperfixation coming in now, too. But yeah, they go on the Carpathia. And it's just like Gabriel has really bad seasickness, and so they go to like the main like open air deck, and like they're just kind of like cuddling, I think, because it's cold. And the medical person, like villain guy, I hate him, I don't remember his name, like sees them cuddling and then tells Rand that like not only is he like obviously it's bad because homosexuality in general is bad, but he like makes a point to be like, not only like did you like this perversion, like you couldn't even do it with like somebody like good. Like he very much is like implying that Gabriel is less than because he's Mexican. So that was interesting, and was very well executed, I thought. And then there's also, I have not mentioned her, I'm so sorry, and my voice I know is going, did not realize it would be like this, but she's a Finnish communist, and I love her. She also discovers that she's a lesbian, and her like lover is the one who makes the Grant hair comment. Anyway, she's fantastic. Her and Rand, like, Rand is bisexual and, like, proposed to her when they were in college together, and she said no. And then she, like, makes a comment, like, fairly early on, about how she thought and hoped that she was like Rand, but actually she just likes women. And, yeah, anyway, she's a great character, and, like, that whole, like, thing is mentioned and used really well too, I think. And then the only other thing that I wrote down really that I think I should maybe mention is I think they changed the end of World War I to be in the summer, because he does that whole Verdun thing in the summer, and I think it's like mentioned again, very rushed, in the sense that like I didn't know this was happening, and it took me a hot second to realize that it ended. And yeah, it's just, I guess, ends there. It does not end in November. So, but I guess that's because of plants, because I guess plants ended the war. I don't know. Quite frankly, I'm still a little fuzzy on that. Which is not a great mark in favor of the book. But yeah. Overall, I liked it. And definitely, like I mentioned, enjoyed reading it. And so, as I am quickly fading here, I'm gonna wrap it up by saying that I enjoyed it. If any of this sounded appealing, definitely pick it up. But yeah, I don't know. If you were going to read this and none of that sounded interesting to you, yeah, maybe don't. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching all of this video. I don't know how long it's going to be in total, but I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.